Music here, Drums West, talking today about how to choose a snare drum. Hey, you want to get a different snare drum for your kit or just to screw around on, whatever. What kind are you going to get? Well, how do you know which one to get? Number one, how much money do you have to spend? That's a big factor right there, right? These days, there are a lot of options for great used drums. There's so many different marketplaces to find used gear. That is a very good option. New drums, though, however, come with warranties, manufacturer warranties, which, like, some companies have lifetime warranties, some have like a year, 3 years. So it's good to know those things and figure that out. Like, maybe you need to save a little bit more. Maybe you don't need to save much money. There you go. But yeah, budget is a big thing when you're trying to pick out any kind of gear. But when you're picking out a snare drum, figure out how much money you have. Okay, what are you going to be using it for? If you play in a reggae band, you are probably not going to pick a 7-inch deep snare drum because it is too low and thuddy sounding typically. If you are playing in a high energy funk rock band that has real crack and that has real just upbeat stuff, again, you should have like a crack and snare that's going to fit that, not something that's low and thuddy. If you're playing in a funk band, low and thuddy may work for that, right? Big wet and slappy sound and 70s kind of funk sound. A lot of times I'll use two different snares. I'll have my main snare and then I'll have a separate side snare, which is either a big one or a small one to achieve those kind of effects, right? It's an easy way to have an extra side snare there to have a low sound, have a high sound without messing around with your main snare. Next thing, the bearing edge of the snare drum. What is the bearing edge? The bearing edge is where the head meets the shell. It's where the contact is. It's like, like on spark plugs, you got to have a clean contact point. Same thing with your bearing edge. But what kind of a bearing edge? Is it a 45-degree angle? Is it a double 45? Is it a rounded 30? Is it a rounded 60? What does all that mean? The sharper the bearing edge, the louder the drum, basically. It's going to have more crack, and you're going to be able to tune it higher for the most part. The more rounded the edge, the deeper and warmer of a sound you're going to get out of it. That's the big thing to know about bearing edges. Again, if you only have $50 to spend on a snare drum and you go down to the local pawn shop, you're going to get what you're going to get, and you're going to make it work for what you needed to make it work with, right? I mean, that's all there is to it. But when you're starting to tweak out a little bit more and to learn these things, these are things that you need to know. Okay, the size of the drum, is it a 5? Is it a 5.5? Is it a 6? Is it a 6.5? Is it a 7? And I'm talking depth, right? This is a 5.5-inch depth here. The diameter across, is it a 14? Is it a 13? Is it a 15? Is it a 12? Those are all very important things to know too. If you get a 12-inch snare drum, you have to know that your ability to do rim clicks gets significantly reduced. Same thing with 13s. It can be a little bit harder to get a better rim click sound if you use longer sticks. So just things to consider, right? If I want a snare drum that immediately really responds quickly and just has zero delay between me hitting it and all that, you get a shallower snare, right? They just have very crisp and clear and quick attack and articulation. Deeper, they still respond, but it takes a little bit for it to kind of respond from top to bottom. There's a little bit of a lag there. And I kind of like that a little bit personally. Again, that's all personal preference. Okay. And then, is it a metal drum? Is it a wood drum? Is it a fiberglass drum? All these are going to be play big roles in how you choose that drum. If you want it to be any kind of warmer with less overtones, typically wood is the way to go. If you want it to be brighter and have a little more rawness to it, a lot of times metal is the way to go. What kind of metal? Do you go steel? Do you go brass? Do you go copper? Do you go bronze? Yes, all of the above. That's why I have 18 to 20, 20 snare drums, because they all serve a little bit different function in their musicality. So ultimately, I only use one when I'm playing, though. So my general snare drum is a 6.5 by 14 maple snare drum. And here's another thing: plies. Plies are the individual layers that make up a drum. Are there plies? Maybe it's a solid drum. Maybe it's a steam bent piece of wood. That gets expensive, right? All that stuff plays in. Do you want that solid sound? There's nothing like it. You're going to pay money for it, but there is nothing like it. So, okay. Here's a small little thing you wouldn't think of, the throw off. What kind of throw off is it? Does it throw this way, sideways, or does it come towards you? Does it flop off? All these things make a difference. For me personally, I like this style of throw off because I can turn it off and put it in my snare drum bag, and the throw off is off. If it flips off this way, inevitably my bag turns it back on, and I can never turn my snares off if it's in its bag. So there's always tension on my throw-off mechanism in the snares, which just wears that stuff out a little bit quicker. Yeah, that's a little more tweaky, but things you wouldn't think of, right? Makes a big difference. The receiving end too. How does it work? Is it drum key? Is it rope? Is it, all this stuff can be changed, but little things you wouldn't think of. The last thing, hoops. Do you want triple flanged hoops, or do you want die cast hoops, or do you want wood hoops? Again, budget is a big part of this. Triple flanges are always going to be the most budget oriented. Die cast hoops are going to be expensive, and wood hoops are probably going to be the most expensive. Good wood hoops anyway. Triple flanged, heavy triple flange, can't go wrong with them. They sound great. Cheap triple flanged, they can kind of start making the drum sound kind of cruddy. Die cast will take over the sound a little bit and shorten the sustain of the drum. And you're also absorbing, like when you hold up a die cast hoop and hit it, it rings. So that kind of plays into effect of how that drum sounds. But they make it very easy to tune that drum too. Wood hoops give the drum just a gorgeous, big crack, warm, depth, everything. I love wood hoops. Yeah, they're a really great way to go. But they are more expensive and they are prone to cracking. So there you go with that too. Okay, again, how to choose a snare drum. Budget. Specifics, what kind of a use are you using for? What style of music are you using it for? Is it a one-timer or is it just general overall usage? Bearing edge, is it a sharp 45 or rounded 45? Is it a 60? Is it a 30? The size and the depth of the snare drum. 5.5 by 14, 5.5 by 13, 6 by 13, what is it? Throw off, does it have a... do you like the way the throw-off operates? Will it stay on when you're doing rim shots, or will it come off? Those kind of things. All right, a couple general things about how to pick out a snare drum. Ultimately, if you don't know how to tune a drum, it's going to sound like crap no matter what you do or how nice it is. So you got to learn how to tune. That's a big part of it. There you go. All right, this is Peter with Boomer Music, and a couple things to know about a snare drum. Take it easy.
If you need gear or advice with anything percussion, reach out to us at drumswest.com. If you like what you hear, do me a favor and tell a friend. Follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and sign up for our e-newsletter so you will never miss new content as it drops. This is Peter with Drums West, your source for drums, heads, mallets, sticks, and much, much more. Thanks for listening.